I never imagined the heartbreaking truth about life as a Roman gladiator. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I was just a boy, barely old enough to dream of glory, when they snatched me from my life. From the fields of my youth, they took me to the Colosseum of death. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a war drum. The scent of sweat and blood hung in the air, clinging to my skin like a second layer. Every day, I watched as men fought for their lives, desperation in their eyes, the crowd roaring like a hungry beast. I felt the vibrations of their cheers wrap around me, a cacophony of hope and despair. Friends I had known for mere weeks became brothers, some I loved, some I feared. And yet, our bond was forged in fire and pain. Each scar on our bodies told a story, a testament to survival amidst the chaos. Every clash of swords was a dance with death. The cold steel whispered promises of glory and the bitter taste of regret. I learned to fight, my body moving instinctively, but beneath the bravado, I trembled. My hands shook as I gripped the hilt, my body a canvas for sorrow and blood. Every victory felt like a loss, every cheer from the crowd echoed with the faint memory of my freedom slipping away. Then came the day I met Marcus, a warrior with a heart full of dreams. Together, we spoke of escape, of the world beyond the walls of the arena. His laughter was infectious, but his eyes held the weight of tragedy. He shared tales of his family, of the warmth of home, something I had long since forgotten. But those dreams shattered when reality struck like lightning. That I, in the midst of battle, a scream pierced the air. It was Marcus, crumpling under the weight of betrayal. My heart lurched. I couldn't save him, tears streamed down my face, mixing with the dirt and sweat on my skin. The arena fell silent, the crowd holding its breath. I was frozen, caught between vengeance and fear. Could I truly fight for someone I had lost? Suddenly, a shocking revelation crashed down on me. If there was something darker than the fight itself? What if, the moment we stepped into the arena, we were already dead, destined to fight for a life we never truly had? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days bled into one another, each sunrise a cruel reminder of my captivity, the progress of time marked only by the rise and fall of bloodied warriors. Each fight, each clash of steel, birthed yet another ghost haunting the corners of my mind. Marcus' laughter echoed less frequently, a sound swallowed by the relentless roar of the Colosseum as we continued our grim existence, his memory like a dagger wound I could not heal. Now, as I stood in the sandy pit, the sun relentless above, I felt that familiar anger swell within me. Not for the enemies that struck at me, but for the very institution that devoured lives like mine. The crowd, their faces contorted in bloodlust, gave no thought to the men who bled before them. They were nothing more than shadows, mere pages in a book for their amusement, yet I was painfully aware of our stories, every pain captured in the ripples of our struggles. I yearned to fight, to avenge Marcus, and yet, beneath my rage was a gnawing sense of hopelessness. That it was during one of these bouts for survival that I met Celine. I had been thrown into an exhibition match with one of the more seasoned gladiators, a bull of a man with scars like trophies and an intensity in his eyes that spoke of his experience. As the battle raged on, I felt the first flashes of desperation clawing at me again. The crowd roared, their cheers deafening, drowning my resolve. But then, amidst the chaos, I caught sight of Hera, a woman in the stands with a bright red scarf streaming like a banner. She clutched her son, his eyes wide with a terror I could relate to. In that moment, she held my gaze, an unspoken connection blossoming between us. I saw her fear, her anguish, it mirrored my own, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. There were still those out there who cared, who felt the weight of our fight. After the match ended in weary silence, I slid down the arena steps, fighting breathlessness, desperately seeking her out amidst the crowd. I needed her kindness, an anchor in this storm of despair. When I reached her, I saw her fear morph into resolve. She thrust the scarf into my hands, her voice a soft whisper over the noise. "Fight for them," she urged, glancing quickly at her son. Her words crushed me. The children of this city would one day become a part of a cycle they did not choose. They were the heirs of a bloody legacy, innocent faces destined to witness brutality. Image after image flashed through my mind, Marcus's spirit lost, trapped in the fighting pit forever. Each moment of connection brought clarity, fueling my anger and breaking my heart all at once. That I looked back at her, at this lifeline, and a spark ignited within me. I would not be like the countless men who had fought and perished like pawns on a chessboard. But how could I? The very walls of the arena were designed to crush hope, squeezing every last ounce of resilience from our weary souls. That in the days that followed, I fought with renewed vigor, my battles fueled by the specter of Marcus and the shimmering hope Selene had ignited. I used every ounce of energy, every drop of sweat, guiding my blade not just for survival but for justice for every man who had fallen before me. But one afternoon, while preparing for a fight that could be my doom or my liberation, a messenger came. He bore news, his eyes darting with a mixture of urgency and fear. "The Emperor is coming. He wishes to select a champion for a grand exhibition. He seeks a fighter whose spirit shines brighter than the sun." A chill gripped my heart. The Emperor's attention was a double-edged sword. The promise of glory came with the darkness of manipulation. The game would only get more dangerous. My instincts told me this was a trap, a way to break those who dared to have hope. Yet, desperate for a life beyond this, I could not refuse. That night, amidst my restless thoughts, I could not shake the memory of Selene and her child. Their faces haunted me like specters, a warning of what awaited if I failed to break free. Yet as I lay on my straw mat, the weight of uncertainty settled like stones upon my chest. I stared into the darkness beyond my cell, searching for answers that might never come. And then, in the dim light of dawn, a new revelation coursed through me. Beneath the weight of my life, another betrayal lurked. The arena wasn't the only place where blood was shed. Whispers of conspiracy wound through the very heart of the city, and I was caught in the crosshairs of a power struggle that sought to turn us all into puppets. With this knowledge, now faced a choice that could shatter what little hope I clung to, yet also offered a chance at liberation. I would put this plan into action, but at what cost? As I pondered the treachery around me, the darkness loomed larger, leaving me with a harrowing question: would I still be a gladiator, or would I become something much darker in the game of survival? In that moment of despair, a shiver ran through me. A figure approached my cell. The hood obscured his face, but I felt a familiar presence. It could only be one of my brothers. As he lifted the hood, a whisper broke through the silence. "I have news that could change everything." My heart raced. Hope flickered and danced dangerously close to the flames of despair. I leaned closer, knowing whatever tale unfolded could be the key to both my salvation and destruction. The evening shadows stretched across the cobblestones as I sat alone, my heart echoing with the specter of uncertainty. The figure before me, now revealed, was Darius, a fellow gladiator, a brother of arms forged in blood and desperation. His eyes shone fiercely, the fire of rebellion mixed with something unrecognizable. "They're planning to pit us against one another," he said, his voice low and breathless. "Some will be chosen for the Emperor's exhibition, but only as bait. They want to root out dissent. The prize? A chance to return home, but if you're deemed unworthy, it's death." His hands clenched into fists, bees buzzing beneath his skin. "I'm telling you this because it's time to consider what we fight for." That 1,000 thoughts stormed through my mind, each more chaotic than the last. A part of me wanted to reject the reality that Darius presented, that my brothers and I were now mere pieces on the Emperor's chessboard, pawns in a treacherous game with higher stakes than just survival. Images of Marcus flitted past my consciousness, unwavering in their intensity, urging me to rise above that which seeks to shatter us, but I also felt the weight of Darius' words, heavy and oppressive. "What do you mean, what we fight for?" I asked, trying to suppress my anger and fear. We fight to live, you have to escape this hell. And now we must choose life or death among ourselves. Darius stepped closer, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. There's a deeper purpose in our struggle, one that goes beyond the arena. If we unite, we could rally others. Right now, the Emperor underestimates the strength of the oppressed. But we cannot let them divide us. As his fervor ignited the embers of my own motivation, I realized the brutality of our reality was not the only thing that could bind us. Surely, within these walls, the strength of those who had fought and survived could outshine the fading hope that had once fueled my existence, Selene and her son. They deserve a world without bloodshed. We all do, I whispered, the urgency pooling in my stomach like cold metal. But how do we even begin? Darius' expression softened, he nodded slowly. We start by spreading word. Not just for ourselves, but for every man who has bled in this pit. The hope of freedom can be a beacon, even in the darkest places. We must plan, gather the others. Forge alliances. As I contemplated our precarious position, the realization flickered through me, Selene's red scarf would be more than a symbol of hope, it could become a banner under which we would rally, a reminder of our humanity amidst this savagery. If we can turn this upcoming exhibition into a platform for our rebellion, we might just ignite the spark needed for change, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but the fervor inside me was expansive, but the shadows at the edge of my mind never faded. Power struggles extended far beyond the arena, intertwining with the lives of the citizens who watched us fight for survival. Hope didn't come easily in such a world. The danger was palpable, the risk of betrayal ever present. Hope binds us, but it can also make us vulnerable, Darius cautioned, his brow furrowed. We must tread softly. Not all who bear witness wish to see us rise. Before we could discuss further, the clang of metal echoed through the corridors, footsteps growing ominously closer. In the grip of panic, Darius disappeared into the shadows, leaving an eerie stillness behind. I quickly moved to the back of my cell, my heart racing as the door swung open, and two guards stepped in, their eyes thin slits of malice. You're needed, one of them sneered, grabbing my arm roughly. The Emperor wishes to see you in the arena. Now that I swallowed hard, fighting against the dread filling my chest. Before they dragged me away from the only shred of hope I felt, a thought struck me like lightning through the storm of my mind. Was I to be a pawn in his game, or was it time to turn the tables? As we neared the oppressive sunlight beyond the arena gates, I glanced about desperately for any sight of Selene, her red scarf flapping like a flame in the wind. I needed to remember that I wasn't alone in this fight, somewhere out there was still a chance for change. If it was indeed treachery lurking around each corner, I would have to play their game better than them. But as I entered the arena, the cheers of the crowd cracked against my resolve like thunder. Each voice was an echo of the bloodlust that surrounded us, a morbid celebration of survival painted with the strokes of despair. The roar of the crowd surged, and within it, hidden whispers wrestled beneath the surface. The real game was about to begin, the fragility of hope clashing violently with the craving for power. It was time to embrace the chaos wrapped around me. Just as I steeled my heart for the inevitable confrontation, a chilling figure stepped into the arena. The Emperor's gaze locked onto mine, and the weight of his authority bore down on me like an ancient curse. His grin was predatory, and I felt the echo of Darius's warning wash over me as I sank deeper into the unfathomable abyss of the game. Tonight, we shall see if you truly have the heart of a gladiator, he proclaimed, the anticipation in his voice resonating with malice. The arena was no longer a place of mere survival. It had transformed into a battleground for everything I held dear, a wager for freedom against the merciless hand of tyranny. As I faced the glimmering blades sharpened by blood and a past filled with pain, I felt one undeniable truth settle within me, that with every fight, every cut, and every drop of sweat, I would dig deeper into the very roots of my anger, and forge my own destiny or perish trying. And in that moment, the unthinkable Hapanita cry echoed above the din of the crowd. Fight for him. The voice soared, unmistakable in its strength. I turned, my heart plummeting, as I saw Selene standing before the mass of bloodthirsty spectators, her red scarf held high. My lifeline, my guiding light, and now, my greatest challenge. In that instant, everything I thought I knew was put to the test. Could I fight not only for myself but for a future that demanded so much more than I ever imagined? The crowd's roar crescendoed around us, and I knew, the choice between glory and sacrifice had never been clearer. Now, as I stood at the precipice of fate, uncertainty gripped my heart. Would I have the strength to reclaim that which could shatter the very foundations of our lives, or would my heart break under the weight of expectation? When Celine reached for me through the storm, I felt both terror and resolve tangled in my veins, propelling me into the arena's deadly embrace, teetering on the edge of everything I never imagined would come to pass. The sun hung low in the sky, casting ominous shadows across the blood-stained sand of the arena. As I faced Celine, strong and defiant, my heart raced with a volatile mix of emotions surging within me. The cries of the crowd surged into a tidal wave, their chants hypnotic and dissonant, drowning out the quiet whispers of doubt that circled my mind. Fight for him. Celine's voice reverberated, carrying an unyielding resolve that both inspired and terrified me. But all I could feel was the weight of the blade I was meant to wield, the countless eyes trained on my every movement, waiting for my next decision. I could almost sense Darius hovering in the shadows, his expectations clinging to me like a shroud. Would I truly fight not just for my freedom, but for the unyielding hope she represented? I nodded, though inwardly, a storm raged. My mind drifted back to the lost battles, the fallen comrades, and moments where courage had felt like an insurmountable feat for him, Celine, for all of us. I wanted to shout with fervor, to channel my fear into something larger, yet my voice shook as I spoke to the emptiness that echoed around me. A sudden silence fell upon the arena. I could feel the Emperor's gaze pierce through me, sharp and calculating. He reveled in our turmoil, savoring the agony of each gladiator as we were put to the test under the scorching sun. "Will you fight for freedom?" he taunted, a smirk curling at the edges of his mouth. "Or will you choose the cowardice of surrender?" The stinging words cut deeper than any sword could. I clenched my jaw, my resolve faltering momentarily as I recalled the promise I had made to Marcus, my brother in arms, who had fallen not long ago. Yet in that moment of despair, the shimmer of Celine's red scarf nestled against her heart seemed to burn brighter, fueling an unexpected flame within me. "Stay alive," I murmured to myself as I inhaled deeply, feeling the air thrum with possibilities, aching with the weight of those who had fallen before me. "Stay alive. You have to carry their hope." The sound of metal clashing drew my attention back to the arena where my rival had appeared, another gladiator known for his speed and ruthlessness. Our eyes met, and I saw recognition pass in a fleeting moment, a ghost from a past fight. The Emperor's game was about to unfold, and I realized the stakes had shifted. This wasn't merely about survival anymore, it was a dangerous balance of life, rebellion, and sacrifice. As our swords clashed, I could hear Celine's voice above the crowd, a guiding siren amidst the discord. "You have to be more than a fighter, more than a pawn," she cried, her words surging through me. The collective fear of 1,000 captured souls echoed in my heart, uniting our struggles for freedom. I countered strikes and thrusts, each blow resonating with the pain of those who had fought before me. Darius' warning loomed at the periphery of my thoughts, reminding me of the treachery that could lie in wait, the betrayal that simmered within our ranks. But as I felt the power of the crowd's energy pulse through my movements, an unexpected kindness emerged alongside the fear, a palpable camaraderie amongst those who understood the fight for survival. "Fight for them. Show them our strength." Someone from the stands shouted, their voice a surge of warmth against the chill of the arena's cruelty. I turned slightly, glimpsing faces of the oppressed, their features lit not just by fear, but by an unyielding spirit. It was a glimpse nurtured by an ignited hope that began to unfurl within me. The fight continued, each clash of metal harmonizing with the thump of my heart. But amidst the struggle, a chilling reality wrapped itself around my chest, a creeping fear that I might lose everything I fought for. I could taste it, the bitterness of doubt mixed with desperation. Would Celine's strength prove enough to see us through this addiction to bloodshed? Could my aspirations for friendship and freedom transcend the boundaries of survival? Then everything changed, as a sudden shift in the rhythm of combat interrupted my thoughts. My rival, a beast fueled by desperation and perhaps betrayal, struck with a fervor I hadn't anticipated. A sharp pain shot through my side, and suddenly warmth seeped through my fingers which clenched desperately at the wound. The crowd erupted into a frenzy, their cries morphing into a blaring cacophony of excitement and bloodlust that I stumbled back, the world swirling as I fought to process what just happened. My heart pounded with alarm, and a surge of panic flooded through me. I was no longer just fighting for my life, I was fighting against the very embodiment of chaos that precluded any chance of a future. A rush of adrenaline fueled me as I offered a desperate thrust with my sword, the weapon clanging as I parried, but the uncertainty gripped tighter than ever. With each breath, I felt Celine's presence, a gentle reminder of why I needed to stand strong. But in that moment, I realized something. Maureen, unforeseen truth unfolded before me, the pain I was enduring, the tangible threat of defeat, it all felt strikingly similar to the anguish of loss, of watching those I loved slip away into an abyss of despair, and then, as I twisted away from another incoming strike, I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye, a figure moving swiftly beyond the terrified faces of the crowd. My breath caught in my throat as I squinted, searching for confirmation. Was it possible? Someone I had never expected to see again was advancing toward the arena, their intentions unknown. My mind reeled. Who could it be? With a flowing movement that felt both heavy and weightless, my sword dropped from my grasp, clattering to the ground, as the shocking figure strode forward. No! I gasped, my mind spiraling into disbelief as the reality blinked in and out, revealing a truth I had never wanted to confront. The arena trembled beneath us, the lives we'd fought to reclaim dangling precariously on the edge of destiny, as I stood paralyzed, caught in the grip of life's most heartbreaking revelation. The flames flickered in the dim light of the arena, casting grotesque shadows on the stone walls that witnessed countless tragedies. My heart echoed in my ears, drowning out the roar of the crowd, each pulse resonated with the shocking apparition I could scarcely comprehend. The figure now fully emerged from the throng of spectators, their familiar face etched with pain and determination. That it was Elias. My childhood friend, whose laughter had once been the ambrosia of our carefree days, now appeared hardened and somber, a living reminder of what had been lost in this unyielding arena. We had not seen each other since the day he was taken, snatched away by the Emperor's men, destined for lifetimes in the gladiatorial pits. My own time had been marked by anguish, but seeing him now, living a nightmare parallel to mine, made my heart feel as though it had physically fractured. Elias. I gasped, the name coming out in a whisper that held years of unsaid words. I reeled, comprehension barely forming. How had he escaped his chains? How could he be here, facing the very violence I fought against? The crowd surged with excitement, seemingly oblivious to the tremors of despair that coursed through me. I could barely return my focus to the fight. The presence of my friend injected a new element into the fray, shifting my priorities. The gladiatorial duel became vague, an echo of background noise fading against the greater tempest brewing inside me. Look out! Elias shouted, forcing me back to my current reality, and I barely evaded a cruel thrust from my rival. Any thought of strategy evaporated under the weight of my emotions. I had to protect Elias. Had he come for me? A part of me reveled in the notion that we could stand united again, but another part screamed in desperation, who was I to drag him into this madness, fighting? I shouted back, the words tumbling from my lips in fervent defiance. But stepping forward felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. It could lead to glory or destruction. Elias' eyes, however, held a horizon of deeper understanding, a shared brotherhood forged with the fire of shared pain. Together, he affirmed as he raised his sword toward me, his gaze fierce and unwavering. As I engaged again with my opponent, the rhythm of our blades became intertwined with memories of laughter, camaraderie, and dreams long extinguished beneath the crucible of our reality. With each clash, visions of our past danced behind closed eyes, the two of us as children, sneaking away from chores to explore hidden paths in the meadows, our dreams as reckless and boundless as the blue sky. With renewed fervor, I battled with a predatory zeal that surprised even myself. The thought of Elias wrestling with solitude, pain, and anguish, suffering that I had felt alone, spurred me onward. Each swing of my sword became a cry against the futility of our situation, but amidst the rage and determination, shadows loomed closer to the heart of the arena. The Emperor's disdainful laughter cut through the air, a stark reminder of our standing in his twisted games. I could almost feel the chains of expectation wrapping tighter around my limbs, daring me to falter, to submit. "Fight!" he jeered, his voice oozing with malice. "Blood for blood, or do you choose the coward's way?" The sneer on his face made my stomach churn with disgust at that moment. With Elias' fury fueling my fire, I caught a glimpse of their audience. The faces, once blurred in the chaos, became clear, a tapestry of hope, fear, and solidarity, all woven together by their dreams of freedom. Each of those souls stood not just as spectators, but as companions on this treacherous path, and they needed me to bear witness to the brutality but also the strength we shared. Then, in the midst of a fierce exchange, the crowd's chant morphed with a rising crescendo of defiance. "Fight for freedom! Fight for them!" They shouted, their words crashing against the arena like thunder, igniting a scent of rebellion that filled the air and sank deep into my bones. But as I landed a well-placed blow, feeling the warmth of victory surge through me, the world shifted abruptly. My rival fell, but an unexpected explosion of chaos followed, a sharp, reverberating sound that cut through the chaos, ripping apart the fabric of the moment. Elias staggered back, eyes wide as he pointed toward the entrance. The heavy gates of the arena shuddered ominously, the guards suddenly dispersing as though they had received a silent command. A figure more a looming shadow than a person stepped through, an imposing presence that sent ripples of electric dread through the atmosphere. Who were they? As recognition hit, the taste of despair flooded my senses. The cloak, the commanding Orodarius. The traitor had returned, emboldened, and with them was a dawning realization that he held secrets that could alter everything we fought for. Elias' voice broke through my shock, a desperate cry for unity. "We need to escape. We can't let him take you." But the thought of fleeing felt foreign, a betrayal in the light of the crowd's hope, of the flames we had ignited. That I hesitated, caught between the cries of my friend and the reckless promise of freedom. In that moment, I stood on the precipice of life and death, neither fight nor flight seeming like an option that could assure survival. The arena echoed with tumult, darkness clutching at my spirit as I faced the unfolding reality. The past, present, and the tentative glint of a future swirled dangerously close, waiting for the final push that would force our hands. And there, amidst inertia, I felt lost adrift in a storm of complexities that now threatened to expose the very seeds of hope I had been so desperate to cultivate. The walls seemed to close in, choking out any clarity I held, swirling around me until I gasped for breath, my life hanging on the edge of epiphany, and uncertainty gripped my heart like a vice. The air was thick with tension, the primal roar of the crowd at odds with the turmoil brewing within me. My heart raced, but not just from the adrenaline of combat, it was the fear of what Darius' presence meant. His eyes, glinting with a mixture of cruelty and cunning, bore down upon me. I could feel them piercing through the chaos, searching for weakness, for the right moment to strike. "Elias, we have to go." I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the crowd, by the notion of defiance that they had built up around us. Every inch of me urged to flee, yet my feet felt anchored in place, half-formed thoughts of unity and purpose clashing violently with the instinct for survival. "Wait!" Elias's shout was stifled by the frenzy surrounding us. He maneuvered closer, where I could see the breath catch in his throat. "I can't leave you, we're stronger together," each word echoed in my mind, ricocheting off the jagged walls that held so many secrets. My friend had always believed in the bonds that tied us, but each passing moment seemed to draw those bonds tighter around our throats, suffocating me with unspoken fears. Could we really escape this life, or were we merely pawns in a game well beyond our control? I turned my gaze back to Darius, who had reached the center of the arena. His voice rumbled through the swell of hysteria, cutting through the noise with chilling clarity. "This display has gone on long enough." He waved a hand dismissively, and the world spun as I found myself lost in memories laced with betrayal and despair. A time when Darius had been more than just a specter of malevolence, he had been a brother in arms, once sharing our laughter and dreams. The heaviness gripped me like a ghost, the realization that Darius knew things, secrets that bled into our lives, revealing truths that could fracture the fragile bonds of loyalty. Could he expose what he knew about us? About the whispered plans for rebellion that had circulated among us gladiators, pregnant with hope, yet tinged with the knowledge that even the slightest misstep could lead to ruin. Let me remind you all who truly commands this arena. Darius shouted, and the atmosphere thickened with dread. The truth loomed, threatening to crumble the fragile facade of hope we had built. But the thoughts of betrayal twisted into something I hadn't expected: wrath. My fists tightened around the hilt of my sword, the pulse of vengeance thrumming beneath my skin. I might not have the power to change fate, but I would not let fear dictate my actions. Listen to them, I cried, my voice rising with fervor. We fight not just for ourselves but for each other. For every soul who dreams of a life beyond these walls. A ripple of murmurs filled the audience, the chant of solidarity replacing the echoes of despair. Hope flickered like a small flame in the dense darkness of our reality. The faces around us shifted from fear to fierce determination, and I saw that hunger for freedom reflected back at me through their eyes. Elias stepped forward, joining my intensity. We are not just warriors, we are brothers and sisters united against tyranny. He pointed to Darius, whose self-assured smirk began to waver beneath the weight of our declaration, yet, amidst that rising tide of defiance, a chilling realization struck me: Darius was not alone. As I scanned the arena, I noticed a tense group of soldiers cracking their knuckles in readiness. It was clear he had come to reclaim what he believed to be his, unwilling to allow the flames of rebellion to spread unchecked. The barrier between life and death loomed ever closer, with Darius's eyes narrowing, excitement thrumming in his chest as realization sparked within him. He was no longer simply a former friend turned adversary, he was the executioner of dreams, a harbinger of our darkest fears. And he came prepared. Then we'll crush you under the weight of your own delusions, he proclaimed, his voice commanding. In that moment it was clear he was willing to show no mercy. Fight for your lives, fight for your freedom, came a voice from the crowd, igniting a flame of resolve that swept across the arena like wildfire. Each chant echoed high above us, louder than Darius' jeers, drowning out the despair that threatened to seep back in. It was a shared heartbeat, a pulse of a people tired of oppression. The guards moved closer, their weapons glinting under the flickering firelight, and it became a race between the two forces: Darius' ambitions against our clamor for freedom. And within that moment, just as we began to fight back, as if drawn by an invisible hand, I caught the glimmer of broken chains at the feet of those bound to their cruel fates. Darius had come with a promise of bloodshed and desperation for power, but what if those chains symbolized something far bigger than just our individual struggles? What if, instead, they signaled an uprising beyond what I could comprehend? Time stood still, poised delicately between potential and peril. Then, as chaos converged around me, a deafening bang echoed, reverberating against the walls, and the ground shook beneath our feet. An explosion that would rewrite our destinies. My heart fell into a chasm of uncertainty as a new figure emerged from the smoke, a resplendent wildness unfurling, igniting an answer to everything I had feared, and dare I say, hoped for. I felt dread knotting in my stomach, but beneath it burned an undeniable spark of exhilaration, because in that moment, the arena held the promise of rebellion and fate hung precariously in the balance. Stand strong, a voice roared, breaking through the tumult, igniting a passion in our hearts that flickered defiantly against the darkness. And as an electrifying confrontation loomed on the horizon, anticipation coiled in my veins, breathtaking possibilities tinged with the bittersweet truth that everything would change, but at what cost? The walls I had built around my fears were crumbling, and I was left to question if the warmth of hope would be enough to shield us from the inevitable heartbreak to come. The dust swirled and caught in my throat, choking the air out of my lungs as I stood at the precipice of the unknown. The roar of the crowd reached a fever pitch, merging into a singular entity of primal longing, a hunger for change. Yet, amid the fervor, my mind raced with troubling thoughts. The newcomers, birthed from the smoke and chaos, held unbridled potential, but with it, they came bearing uncertainties that could either illuminate our path to freedom or plunge us deeper into despair. Who dares to stand against the might of Darius? he asked, his voice ringing with the kind of authority that commanded respect. The specter of defiance I had stirred began to shift as conflicting emotions washed across our ranks. Fear and hope tangled together at the fringes, pulling me in different directions. The figure stepped forward into the dim light. A woman, wild-haired and fierce-eyed, clad in simple armor that bore the marks of countless battles. "I do," she replied, resolute as the earth shook beneath our feet. "I am Lyra, and I have come to remind you that bravery is born from the darkest of places." Her presence carried an undercurrent of electrifying energy, one capable of captivating even the most hardened hearts. I glanced at Elias, who stood rooted beside me, eyes wide with equal parts awe and suspicion. Darius faltered for a brief moment, perhaps the first crack in his veneer of control. Was Lyra here to join our fight or draw us further into the web of conflict that could lead to our destruction? Enough of this farce. Darius snarled, retrieving his sword with a flourish, the blade shimmering like a serpent poised to strike. "You think one woman can shift the tides? You are all still slaves. This arena is your prison. You will die as you lived, bound to your chains," but the spark ignited within Lyra's eyes danced like firelight. "We are no longer bound by chains, Darius," she boomed, each word ringing with conviction that cut through the clamoring crowd. "You may hold the reins for now, but the power of resistance is destined to course through these walls." Just then, a roar of agreement erupted around us, a visceral response echoing the long-suppressed anger and passion amongst the gladiators and those who were witness to their plight. That I sensed an unexpected shift, an inner pulse of solidarity coursing through our group. Yet, doubt lingered in the corners of my mind. Was this solidity mere illusion, a ruse that would dissolve the moment the dust settled? "Gather around." Lyra called to us, her strong voice piercing through the tumult. "Together we will reveal the strength hidden behind our pain. The very blood that flows through your veins speaks of struggle, of resilience. If we face Darius and his soldiers as one, we will break through this madness." As her words deepened in the air, shifting limbs and uncertain hearts began to merge into unison. I could hardly believe the way the atmosphere thickened with determination, a vibrant life force kindling where fear had once shackled our spirits. Yet, buried beneath the rising hope resided an uneasiness. Conflict can inspire unity, but what would be lost in this ignoble fight? But just as I worked to steady my roiling thoughts, Darius' guards surged forward, weapons drawn, their menacing resolve acting like a damning call to action. We had little time before they become a raging torrent, crashing against the fragile defenses we were attempting to hold. "Ready your blades!" Elias shouted, urgency threading through his voice. "Dare we risk everything for change? Even if it costs us our lives?" I shouted back, heart pounding like war drums as I grasped my sword tighter, but as our wills intensified, the world ruptured anew. The ground beneath us splintered and bucked, past and present converging in a grim bone-rattling chorus. Darius' mocking laughter echoed as the guards closed in through the haze. Then, in that moment of utter chaos, a shadow slipped past me, a fleeting figure cloaked in dark leather, a being with a sharp glint of steel that glimmered dangerously in the flickering light. I didn't even have time to scream, nor register any more than a blur, before the figure collided against Lyra in a fierce embrace, hands shaking as they exchanged low words entwined with urgent intent. The air thickened with an uncomfortable concoction of betrayal and recognition. Who was this new ally, who felt so familiar yet prompted knots of anxiety to coil in my stomach? "Lyra," I murmured, the name feeling heavy on my tongue. "Stand together." She called back to the huddled mass of gladiators, yet my focus remained tethered to the swirls of unfamiliarity surrounding the newcomer. "Why don't you join us as well?" Darius taunted, brandishing his sword menacingly as panic flashed across the faces. "Have you come to fetch your own body from the ground? Is that desperation fueling your blood?" Elias shot me a fraught glance. "We must fight," he urged, but there was a tension woven through his words, as if he sensed the impending storm overshadowing our resolve, and as they readied for an all-out confrontation, I gripped my sword, knowing with every fiber of my being that we were not just fighting for our lives, but entangled destinies that could unleash a tempest, reshaping our world forever. As blades clashed, and cries of wounded pride echoed throughout the arena, a realization slammed into me with the ferocity of 1,000 storms. This battle held answers to questions we had not even dared to consider, and the truths unveiled would come at a cost we had yet to fathom. In that instance, a sense of clarity emerged, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every moment had been leading up to this. I turned my gaze back to the shadowed figure whispering urgently to Lyra and felt an inexplicable foreboding wash over me. Was this the ally we desperately needed, or was this the harbinger of betrayal that would fracture our unity and drag us down into the depths of despair? Then I heard Ida gasp that sliced cleanly through the chaos, chilling me to the bone. The newcomer leaned in closer toward Lyra's ear, and in an anxious breath, whispered the name that could shatter everything I knew. "It's him. It's Elias. He's still alive." The ground beneath my feet felt as if it cracked open, revealing the treacherous void of truth rippling through every moment we had shared. Reality twisted with horror as the shadows of my past threatened to bleed into our battle, and I stood frozen, unprepared for the weight of betrayal lurking within our very ranks. The chaos around me swirled like a storm in the depths of my chest, tightening its grip as the whispered name crashed over me like a wave of ice. Elias. The very name that had represented a fragile hope in the darkness now resonated with a haunting betrayal. Was this the truth we had been craving, a misplaced heartbeat linked to a past I thought was irrevocably severed? My gaze darted toward the shadowed figure, who clung to Lyra, the intensity of their conversation a palpable energy that reverberated through the clash of swords and the cries of the desperate. Would the revelation of Elias, the entity I had so ardently relied upon, become our downfall? Or was there a flicker of hidden truth that offered a sliver of humanity within this cruel, unyielding existence? The crowd screamed as the guards advanced, and I could only stand woodenly, torn apart by doubt and disbelief. My heart thudded in unison with the frenetic beat of battle, but my mind was a tapestry of confusion. Would reuniting with Elias alter the course of our last stand? Or was it a deadly exposure that would compromise the very essence of our rebellion? Focus. Lyra bellowed, her voice breaking through the fog of panic that threatened to consume me. We cannot lose sight of our purpose. We break free from this oppression, together. She glanced over her shoulder at the newcomer, who nodded, pushing back against whatever fear circled between them. I wanted to scream at them both that they had to reveal the truth that rested like a boulder between us, but the urgency of our situation extinguished my voice. The guards advanced, weapons gleaming with fatal promise against the flickering torches that lined our makeshift arena. Yet even amongst this impending storm, those wild eyes of Lyra's fueled a warmth of camaraderie that brought flickers of hope to life. My heart was still a battlefield of turmoil, but if she believed there was still a way forward, perhaps, just perhaps, I could carry that faith forward. Fight, not just for your chains, but for the legacy we build here. Lyra's rallying cry rang out, stirring the flame within the hearts of our fellow gladiators. They surged forward, arms outstretched with swords ready, a wave of defiance crashing against the stone heart of oppression. As I readied myself, I couldn't shake the feeling that this melee wasn't just about survival anymore. We were weaving our fates in real time, for better or for worse. Each thrust of my blade felt like a culmination of all the loss that had shaped our lives, every scar and every whispered dream finding its release in this visceral oath to reshape our reality. Suddenly, another fragile thread began to weave through the chaos. I noticed a young boy perched on the outskirts of the fray, clutching a wooden sword, eyes wide with both terror and curiosity. He was a mere child, undoubtedly too young to comprehend the gravity of this furious battle. My heart ached for him, and as I fought back against the guards, I caught glimpses of his face, marked with confusion that echoed my own. Yet in that moment, the realization that our fight was for those who came after us, for those like him, ignited a fire within me. We weren't just soldiers in this arena, we were more than trained blades. We were the legacy of each other, mothers, fathers, innocent children. Protect him. I shouted to no one in particular, my voice rising above the chaos. We fight for their future. In the midst of the fray, I saw Elias dart out towards the boy, a flash of protective instinct leading him into the fray. My heart seized, to see him olive crack me open like an egg, letting hope spill out in salty rivulets. yet along with it came the fear of losing him again. "You're here!" I shouted out, my emotions bursting forth. But the moment morphed into treachery as the guards shifted and descended upon the boy. I lunged, the red haze of adrenaline fueling my movements as I thrust my blade, narrowly deflecting the strike aimed at him. But there was no time to celebrate the small victory. In the chaos, I felt a sudden weight on my arm, a glancing blow that sent me staggering backward. I fought to regain my balance when Elias's eyes met mine, filled with a storm of emotions that could divide or unite us. "Stay close!" he shouted through gritted teeth, a flicker of warmth igniting in the depths of his expression. Together. The very world around us teetered on the edge of oblivion, yet our fates intertwined like vines stretching toward the sun, hope and fear coiling together in a delicate dance. I just needed to hold on to this connection, but with every clash of sword against sword, whispered secrets beckoned, threatening to rupture the fragile bond we had just begun to rebuild. In that moment, the newcomer who had whispered the name of Elias surged forward, wrapping an arm around Lyra, throwing us both into a protective stance. "We have another chance," she urged, her voice tight with urgency. "We can still win this." But her words twisted and folded into something darker as I began to sense a surge of power emanating from her. There was something reminiscent and disquieting about her, and dread began to claw at the edges of my heart. What other secrets lay buried between us, then, as blades clashed and the crowd roared, revealing a primal struggle for life itself? I was struck by another horrific truth. This wasn't simply a fight to escape, it was a calculated game in which the very threads of loyalty and love were poised to unravel. A booming clash sent tremors throughout the arena as Darius' presence loomed again, casting shadows over the flickering hope that had begun to build. In his eyes, I read a promise of further betrayal, a foreboding warning of the storm yet to come. And just then, as the fight surged onward, a haunting realization pierced through the air: secrets born of lives entwined through love and hope carried consequences greater than the blades we wielded. My heart lurched as I understood, in that flickering moment of chaos, that every battle fought only led us deeper into the labyrinth of truths hidden within, a destiny that connected us all in ways far more profound than any of us had dared to imagine. "Elias!" I cried, our eyes locking once more amidst the tempest, but before I could utter a word, a cataclysm echoed through the arena. The ground erupted beneath our feet, as fissures of revelation began to split the very fabric of our reality. In that moment, I saw clarity in the eye of the storm, a truth so devastating that it coalesced like a dagger poised to strike. We were all bound by a greater force than survival. Just as the world shattered around us, I wondered if we could escape the fate destined for us, or if it would drag us down into the abyss of despair and heartbreak. The earth trembled beneath us, a seismic echo that sent splinters of fear racing through the assembled fighters. Everything I had fought for, the fleeting moments of hope, the bonds of camaraderie, hung in the balance as the arena crumbled, and my heart raced to a frantic tempo that matched the chaos. "Retreat!" came a voice, but it was lost amid the clamor. Darius' towering figure emerged at the edge of the turmoil, eyes glinting with malevolence as he surveyed his audience, our burgeoning rebellion teetering on the brink of annihilation. "Do you truly believe you have a choice?" he bellowed, his tone both mocking and condescending. "You are mere pawns in my game, and this is merely the beginning." The ground sputtered beneath him, shards of stone and dust swirling as if to emphasize his words. For a heartbeat, I was rooted in place, paralyzed by the weight of his declaration. My gaze flicked to Elias, searching for reassurance, but all I found was uncertainty mirrored in his eyes. Each breath felt heavier, the air thick with the realization that the battles we fought didn't just shape our reality, they were manipulated by powers far beyond our understanding. Before I could process anything further, I caught a glimpse of the boy again, still clinging to his wooden sword at the edge of the chaos, a stubborn fire in his wide eyes. It sparked something deep within me, kindling the embers of resilience. My heart surged. There was purpose here that transcended our individual struggles. "Lyra!" I shouted, forcing myself to act in this maelstrom. "Get him to safety!" I motioned toward the boy, clarity piercing through the fog of my fear. "We can't let him become another casualty." Her gaze darted between me and the boy, and she nodded, determination igniting her spirit. I watched as she moved deftly through the chaos, taking the child's hand in hers as if she understood that we were more than gladiators or protectors. Their retreat somehow filled the space between us with a flicker of renewed hope that in that moment of brief respite, I turned my attention back to the fight. A surge of rage boiled within me, and my resolve solidified into steel. This storm, this turmoil, could not claim us. We would not fall into Darius's predestined path. Forward! I cried, driven by the necessity of our mission. We fight not just against them, but for our future. For those who cannot fight for themselves. My voice carved through the din, igniting the hearts of our fellow fighters, and the tide began to shift. We pressed forward, an unstoppable force spiraling into a painful symphony of clashing steel. Every lunge, every jab, became a way to sever the chains we had worn for so long. In the midst of this melee, I found a fleeting glimpse of Elias at my side, united once more as allies, our blades working in harmony against our foes. But the world was determined not just to challenge us with foes armed with swords, fate had yet another cruel twist in store. An unexpected explosion of earth erupted near the entrance, revealing the grim visage of a forgotten gladiator, his face masked in shadows and pain, a testament to what we all had endured. Alaric? I whispered, recognition cutting sharply through the chaos. He stood there, battered yet fierce, like a specter haunting the edges of our memories. His eyes held a wretched familiarity, a reminder of those who had once shared our fight, who had been trapped by the very system we sought to dismantle. Help me, he rasped, his arm outstretched, but the ground trembled once more, and a fissure split between us, teasing the potential of salvation and despair. Remnants of grit and guidance surged through me, and yet a terror gripped my heart. Could saving him mean unearthing tales that were better left in the shadows? What would it cost us, unearthing the past that lay tangled within the threads of our rebellion? Let's get him out. Elias shouted, breaking through the clamor of my thoughts, his determination as unwavering as the steel in his sword. But Darius' laughter echoed after us, riding in on waves of dread. You think you can rewrite destiny? Your past is forever intertwined with him. Those words grounded us, and the warmth of hope flickered as uncertainty coiled back in. This fight may not just be for our liberation, it could be a reckoning of the truths we tried to bury. As we moved together towards Alaric, a sudden surge of energy reverberated through the arena, kicking the dust up like sand in a storm. The raging conflict stilled, breaths held in anticipation. And then I saw a woman emerging from the shadows, ethereal yet fearsome. Her presence surged with a power that felt like a dark embrace around our hearts, an anchor connected to each of us. You think you can escape what is sown into your very being? She hissed, her voice reverberating through us like a dark melody, revealing the truth of our shared lineage, a tapestry woven with pain, betrayal, and unwavering strength. In that haunting moment, I understood we were caught in threads of fate we had yet to unravel. The warmth of hope brushed against the cold fact of our origins, a truth that was as much a part of us as the breath we drew. Standing in that abandoned arena on the brink of what felt like annihilation, my heart raced with the realization that the fight was far from over. What lay ahead was a duality of confrontation against our enemies and the very shadows of our past. And as I extended my hand toward Alaric, a wild heartbeat echoed between us, murmuring tales of both hope and heartbreak. The ground beneath us seemed to breathe like a living guardian, daring us to step forward into the unknown. Yet, in this moment of burgeoning allied strength, a shattering thought danced in my mind. Could we ever truly extract ourselves from the darkness of our history? Or would it forever haunt us, cruelly intertwining with our quest for freedom? Just then, a deafening roar sliced through the air as Darius moved to strike, forcing us to confront an uncertain fate. I felt the air shift around me, charged with the intensity of what was unfolding in that arena. Darius charged forward, his sword raised high, cutting through the fear like a sharpened blade. It dawned on me that we were not merely fighting for our lives, we were battling the very essence of our past, confronting the failures and scars that marked our souls. The weight of my reality pressed down as I met his fierce gaze, filled with a mix of contempt and amusement. Yet in that moment, amid our impending chaos, I saw the connection surge around me. Elias, Lyra, Alaric, each of them stood shoulder to shoulder, a united front against the darkness threatening to envelop us. the flickering fires of determination from our comrades blazing against the shadows. As I locked eyes with Elias, a silent promise flowed between us, binding our shared pain into strength, together. I shouted, my voice threading through the thunderous noise reverberating in the arena. We surged forward, the momentum a pulse that echoed in our hearts, a symphony of defiance harmonizing with raw emotion as we engaged in a dance not merely of warriors but of brothers and sisters seeking to reclaim their narrative. Darius advanced, snarling as he clashed swords with Alaric, the force of their encounter sending shockwaves through the air around us. I darted into the fray, blades flashing against steel, my heart pounding like war drums in the heavens above. Every clash resonated with the echoes of our history, memories of laughter and dreams buried under our shared sorrow. I will not be your puppet. I roared, shoving Darius back, my sword meeting his with a force that could have echoed for miles. He stumbled slightly, surprise mingling with rage on his countenance. I hung on to that flicker, the hope igniting beneath my skin as I pressed forward, but uncertainty loomed before us. What if all this ended in despair? The haunted expression on Darius's face switched, a realization dawning behind those eyes. You think you can rewrite destiny? He spat, his voice dripping with cynicism. Your past is your greatest enemy. A sharp pang hit my gut, for he was right in a way. Each of us carried our burdens, the history of our fights, our losses, and the shackles that still whispered in the back of our minds. But as I faced him, breathing heavily, it became clear there was no more room for ghosts. This was our moment, we could forge our future despite the remnants of our past. Then a voice cut through the chaos, steady and fierce. It is our past that fuels our flames of freedom. Lyra shouted, charging into the melee. She caught my gaze, briefly filled with strength. I saw the conviction in her eyes, the same belief that had sparked within me when we fought for the child. It was more than revenge, it was fighting for those who mattered, those who still had a chance to grow. Darius faltered, his bravado cracking under the weight of our collective spirit. You dare speak of freedom? He hissed, the venom in his voice wavering just enough for me to recognize the tremors of doubt beneath it. You don't know the depths of commitment you require. In that moment of vulnerability, a spark ignited within me. My heart surged as I remembered Celine, the warmth of her hand in mine, the hope she carried like a beacon. A thought that had once seemed so fragile now wove through my core. We fight because we're not afraid to embrace the darkness we carry. I shouted, conviction carrying my words, resonating against the stone walls. Together, we will turn our pain into power. With a determined rush, I lunged forward, delivering a blow that sent Darius reeling. The crowd erupted, my heartbeat synchronizing with the thundering cries of our rebellion. We were not just gladiators, we were the architects of a new story, one where fear no longer dictated the narrative. As the dust settled from our clashes, I felt the moment stretch timeless, achingly real. Each encounter with Darius represented not just a fight for survival but a reclamation of our souls. Yet even as I pushed back against him, I felt the tug of uncertainty threading through my heart. And then it hit me, everything we had fought for. The truth I had been running from swelled within me, demanding to be addressed. I glanced toward Alaric. He stood steadfast, navigating between the pushes of despair and flickers of hope. Every ounce of strength surged within me as I heard that haunting whisper once more, your past is your greatest enemy. What if it were also our greatest ally? Just then, amidst the cacophony of battle, a familiar figure broke through the shadows. Celine, her red scarf billowing like a brave flag caught in a storm. Her gaze met mine, unyielding and fierce with purpose. We fight for our children. She shouted, rallying the crowd's energy and piercing through the despair like sunlight through thick fog. Fight for them. Echoed back from the throngs, the rallying cry of our collective heartbeat merging into one resonant pulse, a pulse of rebellion, of strength that defied all odds. Each strike felt like a baptism in fire. We bled, and yet we refrained, not for ourselves, but for a future intertwined in the light of our resilience. One by one, the other gladiators stepped forward with renewed vigor, thrusting their swords up against the forces that sought to obliterate our resolve. Together, we turned toward Darius, no longer adversaries trapped in old narratives but catalysts of the new tale we had fought to rewrite. And then it happened. As Darius made one final charge, I thrust my sword forward, conviction converging into motion, and our blades met in a clang that lit the arena like lightning. Time stretched, and I felt the weight of pain and heartache of our shared journey. They surged through me, coiling into violent energy that erupted into a bright flame. That we are more than just fighters. I shouted, our blades resonating with every echoing heartbeat of our defiance. We are the soul of our story reborn. Suddenly, as the dust settled momentarily, everything froze. A single breath inhaled and held in the charged atmosphere. In that stillness, clarity came crashing in the resounding echo of every sacrifice, every ounce of love that had guided each of us to this very moment. Then came a crashing wave of energy from behind me. I turned to find the younger boy, tears streaming down his face, clutching the wooden sword as if it were a symbol of hope itself. I felt a rush of warmth, an unexpected emergence of emotion. His innocence, juxtaposed with our tumult, made everything real. We were fighting for him, we were breaking chains and forging futures. Fight for our future. He shouted, surprising us all, his slight voice breaking through the chaos, a cry for freedom wrapped in pure youth. At once, everything coalesced, the stakes, the wounds, the laughter, the tears. Darius faltered as the crowd made their declaration, an unyielding, united front against the chains of oppression. In that moment, clarity crystallized. We were not fighting just for our lives, we were fighting to reclaim our legacy, to forge possibilities as blazing beacons for those yet to come. The understanding swept through me, urging me onward, together. I bellowed, as I took the final step, closing the distance between myself and Darius, bringing my sword down with the weight of hundreds of stories that had come before us. A fierce expression of defiance, of hope. Time breathed one final breath as the arena exploded into a cascade of sound. The vibrant battle cries of the crowd mingled with our cries for freedom, a symphony of voices unfurling into the tapestry of a new destiny. Darius fell, vulnerability reflected in his eyes, a humanity brought forth by raw defeat. And as he hit the sand, I looked out, seeing every face that had once stood behind us. The memories of those lost melded with those yet to be born. Each of us faced the dawn of endless possibilities, and as the dust slowly settled, I turned to see Celine, her fierce-hearted spirit igniting a warmth within me like nothing I had ever known. Fading sunlight flickered through the dimness, illuminating our path forward, coaxing fresh hope into our lives. And no longer will we live in fear of our past. I whispered to the crowd, felt Celine take my hand. This is our time. Together, we will forge a future, not just step into the light of day but carry the essence of every sacrifice forward. As we stood side by side, our swords raised high, I felt the heartbeat of our collective hope echo through my chest. We would not succumb to history's echo, but rather dance in the ashes of rebirth, and just as dusk faded, the final unyielding heartbeat became a promise. We will fight for our tomorrow, united in heart and spirit, echoes of freedom lining our souls until the end of time. The arena held its breath as our lives edged toward an electrifying rebirth. And together we stepped forward, toward that undiscovered horizon, knowing with every heartbeat that the future danced ahead, alive and waiting for us to write our story anew.